Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yes, my name's Gabriella Kuykendall. My last name is spelled Kuykendall.
Okay. And how do you know Miss Driver?
I met her through Benyamin about, I want to say, maybe 5 years ago when I met her.
Okay.
Or longer than that now.
No, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. You've been talked about already in this case. Are you the first wife of Mr. Benyamin Ben Michael?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you meet him?
I met him in 2013, and we had met at a March Against Monsanto rally that we were both trying to create. Sorry,
It's okay.
I'm a little nervous up here. I don't speak well in front of people.
It's okay.
But we were organizing the rally together, and that's where I met him.
Okay. How old were you when you met him?
I was 17.
Do you know how old he was at the time?
I believe he was 33.
Okay. And you met him and you at this, I guess, activism type rally, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did your relationship progress from there?
It quickly became very emotional. I pretty much immediately, within a few months, became his girlfriend, and then a couple months later moved in with him at his parents' house.
Okay. When did he declare you to be his wife?
Probably a year or so after I met him.
Okay. Did he give you a name as well?
Yes, he gave me the name Iliomah.
Okay. How would you spell that?
Ayliomah.
Did people just call you Oma for short?
I went by Eily, and then once I had my daughter, our daughter, mine and Benyamin's, I just went by Oma, and we gave her the name Eily.
Eily. Okay. And when you first met him, you said you were living at his parents' house or staying with his parents' house?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about how that relationship progressed. Were you both working, doing anything like that?
No, neither of us were working. He was loosely affiliated with a financial group called Primerica. It was like a life insurance investment company. But that he didn't really make any money through that. It's like an MLM sort of thing.
What drew you to him?
Well, I'd never really met anyone like him before. He just knew a lot about spirituality and religious sort of doctrine, I guess, and just I was very naive at the time when I met him, so I'd never really heard any of those concepts before.
Was he kind of your first serious relationship?
He was my first serious relationship.
Okay, so you quickly moved in together, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and tell me about what happened pretty quickly within your relationship with how he treated you.
Well, things pretty quickly had gotten controlling. He would just kind of alienate me from my family and my friends, and just kind of.
Okay. Did he impose certain rules upon you or things that you had to live by?
You mean early on, or?
Yeah, about your ability to go out in public or hang out with other people.
Well, at first we just went out together and there was really no problem, but at a certain point he, if I wanted to go see my friends or my family, he didn't want me to do that.
Okay. Did you have limitations on any of your cell phones, emails, or social media?
Yes, absolutely. I primarily used Facebook Messenger to talk to people that I knew, my friends from high school and stuff. And he would always be controlling the conversation, or whenever I talked to my sister, which is mainly the only person in my family he would let me talk to, he would be right there, the phone would be on speaker, and he would be telling me what to say, basically. Like, I couldn't actually have a real conversation with anyone.
Okay. Did he go through your phone frequently?
Yeah,
Did
absolutely.
Did he take your phone away from you at times?
At times, yeah, when he thought, like, when I wasn't, like, really happy, like, being there with him and I might want to leave, he would, like, take my phone so I wouldn't be able to leave and call anyone or text anyone to come get me.
Okay. And you said he monitored your social media or your emails as well?
Yeah.
Okay. At what point did your relationship turn physically abusive?
I would say within the first 6 months.
Okay. What are some of the things that you experienced with him?
Well, he would, hit me. There's this one instance, it was one of the worst, I would say, where I wanted to leave. And he had took duct tape and duct taped my entire torso to where I couldn't really breathe very well. And he had just started, like, beating my face, like, really bad. Open-handed, not close-handed, but he just open-handed. I was, like, just seeing the light.
Okay. And there were some other incidents as well? Some of that which got reported to law enforcement, is that correct?
Yes, there is a police report about the time where he had me in his basement, and he basically told me that he was going to kill me, and he had a machete to my throat, and he just went into detail, like, how he was going to do it and how he was going to get away with it. No one would ever know, and I was convinced at the time. It was very frightening. And his father came downstairs because he had heard probably me crying or something, and he, got involved, and then Benyamin kept his father and his mother and me all hostage and wouldn't let us use the phones to call the police.
Okay. After the machete incident, why didn't you leave?
It was just one of those, like, back and forth sort of, like, codependent toxic relationships, and it was really hard to get away because every time I left I felt, like, empty, like I had no purpose to live. I just, like, would want to kill myself, and so he was, like, my main source of, like, everything, just, like, my reason to live. At a certain point I was absolutely completely dependent on him emotionally.
When you would leave, would you all start talking or texting again? And
Yeah, I would leave, and I would try to not talk to him, and then at a certain point I would, he would just be incessantly messaging me, usually is how that happened, and I would just text him back. I'd be triggered, and I would just text him back, and then he had a way of sucking me right back in.
Okay. Did he proclaim you to be one of his wives before or after the machete incident? Do you recall?
I believe it was after that.
Did he make any kind of demands to you about wanting to have children with you or others?
Yeah, he said the only way that I could be his wife exclusively is if I had a child with him in the next year. He kind of gave me, like, a time limit for that,
Okay.
which is
And
weird.
so
but
you ended up getting pregnant with your daughter?
Yeah, I believe within that time frame. Yeah.
Okay. After you got pregnant with your daughter, was he still emotionally or physically abusive with you?
Well, always emotionally abusive. Physically, it kind of dwindled a little bit because, I was pregnant at that point, and there was a few instances where he kind of, like, he would like to, like, suffocate me, and that happened once that I remember while I was pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you were pregnant, you kind of continued on this nomadic lifestyle, correct?
Yeah, we
Okay.
were just kind of all over the East Coast, just bouncing around from couch to couch. And right before A few months before I gave birth to my daughter, we stayed at his parents' house and kind of settled in there. And I decided that I would get I would see a prenatal doctor for, just to make sure everything was okay, because he didn't want me to have any prenatal care or give birth in a hospital or anything like that.
Okay, so you kind of tried to take the lead on that
Oh
one.
yeah, at a certain point I started realizing it was like I had a real person that I was about to create, and that they needed that sort of thing.
Okay. During this time, even continuing into your pregnancy, were you still not allowed to go out on your own, or did you regularly check your phone or still control who you talked to or communicated with?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Same with social media or email?
Yeah, that never really changed until the end, when I started gaining more self-confidence and really realizing that I could leave really the relationship.
Okay, and so you had your daughter in August of 2016, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And where did you go from there? Where did you go stay?
We pretty much immediately left his parents' house, and we kind of bounced around for a little bit, I think 2 weeks or so, just couch surfing, friends we knew, and then we ended up at Jerry's house, Jerry Ablin.
Okay, and how long were you at Jerry's house, do you think?
We were there a couple of months, at least 2-3 months.
Okay, and to clarify with you, you were his first wife, technically, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But you are somebody different that left Mr. Ablin's house at a different time. You only know about that through other parties, correct?
I only know about what through the...
Someone else leaving Mr. Ablin's house in a different way. We're not talking, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about your overall relationship. You're still living this kind of nomadic lifestyle. You had your daughter. Was he allowing you to take your daughter places or get any type of early care?
I believe we went to the doctor once after she was born, because DCF had gotten involved immediately at the hospital because his mother was there and told them he was crazy. And so they immediately got involved, and we went to a doctor's appointment because we had to for the DCF case. And then we just left and sort of abandoned the case. And okay.
What was the first time you went to leave Mr. Ben Michael? What was the precipitating incident that finally, at least for that first time, got you away from him?
You mean after I had my daughter?
Yes.
Okay. Because before that, I tried to leave many times and did leave and would, go back and forth. But let's see. I guess the straw that broke the camel's back would be when I was staying at Jerry's house with him, and my sister came down for a visit, and he was trying to rope her into the whole polyamory thing. And it's one thing for, it just crossed the line for me with my sister to have to deal with that sort of thing,
Was that the first time that your sister kind of got an inside look into the life that you had been leading with him?
No, she knew very well. When I would leave him at certain points, I told her everything that happened,
But ultimately, you would be drawn right back to him, kind of based on the bond that you had with him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever, and this is a personal question, have you ever been diagnosed with any mental health issues or anything like that? Okay. And when this incident with your sister, and he, I guess, invited your sister to be part of your group, how did you manage to get away from him on that particular occasion?
Well, yeah, my sister was there, so she had a car, and she was very, emotionally supportive of me leaving him. And so, I just told him we were leaving. At that point I felt like I could, and I said, we're leaving, I'm leaving with my sister, and I just left.
Okay, but yet prior to that, you didn't have a car or anything else on your own?
Yeah, no, prior to that, you know, it was just like me and him, or, I mean, we'd be at Jerry's house, so he would be there, but, you know, there was no leaving, there was no going anywhere, like, unless I just took my daughter and walked away, you know, and then you know, that would be pretty difficult.
Okay, so you left with your sister and your daughter at that particular time. How long were you away from him at that point?
I think I stayed away from him for about a month or so, and I moved into a farm in Florida, and I tried to like establish some roots for myself and become like financially stable and not have to rely on him. And then, you know, he's just threatening me with you know, taking my daughter away and stuff like that, getting the courts involved. You know, he said, oh, when we're done with you, you know, you're going to be left drooling in a mental institution, you know, stuff like that. And it scared me, you know, I was like, I don't know what could happen. Like, if he paid someone enough money, like a good lawyer or whatever, like, I don't know what he could convince someone of, because he's very convincing. But yeah, so what was the original question?
So how did you end up going back to him with your daughter after that?
Oh, so yeah, we had been talking, and you know, I didn't want to burden the people whose farm I was staying at. I didn't want to burden them with this crazy person, you know, so I just left. And we stayed in Florida, in Tampa, and we lived in a tent, just like homeless, you know, with pretty much nothing.
Okay. What drew you back to him at that point in time?
Really just, was incessant about wanting to see his daughter, and, you know, as we spent some time apart, you know, I thought, you know, maybe it'd be okay if, like, you know, he saw her and, you know, maybe it'll be okay, I don't know.
When you were apart from him, how would you describe how you felt inside, or what kind of feelings did you experience when you were not around him?
Well, for a really long time, I would just feel like empty, like I had absolutely no reason to continue on, and he always made me he tried to make me think that about myself, that I was nothing without him, and he was the entire purpose for my existence, basically.
And at times you were feeling suicidal?
Oh, absolutely. There are many times.
Okay. And so you are living with your daughter and him in a tent in Florida. How old was your daughter at that time?
She was about 6 months old.
Okay. And kind of what was the next, I guess, red flag or everything that happened with you in that regard?
Well, just after years of nothing ever really changing, and I was always like struggling so badly, you know, and we were just, you know, living in this tent. We had nothing. We were beggars, and we had hardly anything to eat at really any point. My daughter was exclusively breastfeeding, so she was getting what she needed, but I could barely, like, you know, get by. It was just draining it out of me, and there's only so long, you know, someone can do that for before they become malnourished. So I just reached out to my dad, and I said, you know, please just come get me. I need to get out of this situation. This is like, it wasn't really rock bottom, because there have been worse points, but that was a really low point.
Okay. Did he, during this time that you got back together with him, did he make threats about your daughter if you had left again, or what he would do?
Well, yeah, the last time that I actually ever saw him and that he saw our daughter, I was with Chloe, and we were on a trip going to Asheville, and it was like over the course of like 3 days, and he had made threats that he would take my daughter and just disappear with her, and I would never see her again. And that just, like, you know, scared me so bad. I was like, oh, that's never gonna happen. that's never gonna happen. I'm not gonna let that happen. So after that, I vowed to never see him again, and that's how it's been so far.
Okay. And you currently have a case pending in the state of Tennessee with Mr. Ben Michael, correct?
Yes.
And because you've remarried, correct?
Yes.
All right, and your current husband is trying to adopt your daughter, correct? Okay. Is that your motivation for being here today or trying to help Ms. Driver at all?
No, actually, when I told my lawyer about this to make sure it was okay that I came here and there was like no conflict of interest or anything like that, I said, oh, would you like to speak to her lawyer to just get a better idea of, you know, who this guy is that we're dealing with? And he said, no, that there's, you know, no reason. We have all we need for our court case because it's just simply based on his abandonment of his daughter. So there's really, well, and the fact that I feel guilty, you know, because Chloe tried to reach out to me a few times, and I just, I mean, I spoke with her and kind of told her how my relationship with Benyamin went, but I just felt like I wasn't getting through to her and that she would just kind of have to learn on her own, and I feel really guilty about like not trying to help her more.
Okay. So, you have not seen or heard or talked to Benyamin since when?
We have spoken a few times over the course of the last like 6.5, 7 years since he's seen his daughter, just mainly like through text or email, and just very limited, you know.
Is it about your daughter? Generally speaking?
Not really, never really about her, you know. Yeah.
Okay, so you know, left this relationship with your daughter and kind of didn't look back at this last time, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And then you got a call from the Canton Police Department on December 14th of 2020, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And in that phone call, you kind of learned about this whole circumstance, correct?
Yes.
And you provided Detective Cruz at that time all of the information regarding your relationship with Mr. Ben Michael, correct?
Yeah.
And kind of talked to her about your relationship with him and how things ended and that kind of thing, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Did you tell Detective Cruz anything about you being concerned about a potential abuse against Chloe? Do you recall?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Do you remember talking to Detective Cruz in that phone call about that you had been concerned about Chloe or that she might have been being abused?
Yeah, when I first got the call, I thought that Benyamin had, because she didn't tell me exactly what happened, and I just thought Benyamin had killed Chloe. That was my first thought because of his abusive nature. So I thought maybe it got out of hand, and yeah.
And you know, you've talked to us today about some of the incidents of physical abuse, but is it fair to say that's just a small snippet of what you actually endured in that time that you were with him?
Yeah, there were multiple instances of abuse that went on.
Did you feel like that you were free to leave whenever you wanted?
Not really. I mean, there were good points, I guess, like just like more normal points where I guess his mental illness like would kind of relax, and then there would be points where it would ramp up like really bad, and he would just start acting totally crazy, like talking in tongues and screaming and, you know, being abusive physically. And so it was really at those points that I wanted to leave. And that's when he would have more of a grip on, like, he could tell that I wanted to leave, so he would be more controlling at those points.
Okay. Is he still trying to, I guess, take your daughter away is not the right word, but is he still trying to kind of manipulate that relationship with you?
You mean manipulate?
Well, is your when you filed this adoption case, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he turned around and filed something different,
He wanted like visitation, like after like 6.5 years of not seeing my daughter or like or even asking to see her. So he wanted visitation, and so I immediately filed the adoption.
But he hasn't seen your daughter in 6+ years, I guess?
No, and after, after the whole incident with Chloe and him happened, and things kind of cooled down over a month or so, I told him that he could see his daughter for some reason, and so it was just over 9 months that I was telling him we were trying to make plans where he would come and see her. He's like, oh, I just need to get my RV fixed, and it was always like an excuse. It was like 9 months later after that incident that he never saw her during that entire time, even though I was like 100% like open and willing to it. And so at that point I was like, yeah, I just stopped talking to him because it wouldn't be right for him to just go in and out of my daughter's life like that.
During this time period, have you kind of tried to live off the radar to avoid contact with him or him being able to find out where you are?
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm constantly thinking about like at any point if he might show up, and try to take my daughter or hurt me,
In your experience with him and trying to leave, he would basically tell you that you would never see your daughter again, or he would take steps that way to make sure that happened?
Yeah, there are multiple instances where he threatened that I would never see my daughter either because, he would win in the courts, or he would physically take her, like abduct her and take her away from me, and I would never be able to find him or my daughter.
But it's your testimony here today that your experience with him in your relationship, you endured physical abuse.
Yeah.
Okay, and emotional and mental abuse as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and that he controlled your phone, who you talked to, who you spoke to, wrote emails to, or connected with on social media, correct?
Yeah.
All right, and that was kind of one of the rules that you had to live by to be in that relationship, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and that it took you several different times of leaving and coming back before you were finally able to break away from that, correct?
Yeah, it was a terrible cycle of leaving, coming back, leaving, coming back.
And to this day, what do you attribute as to the reason why you were finally able to get away from him entirely?
I guess I would say, well, that one instance with my sister, that really helped having her there physically to help me leave physically and just emotionally. But I guess over the last few times that I kind of left, and then I would come back and ultimately left him for good, I think I had just gained like self-confidence in that area, like that I realized that I could actually do that, and that that I could, I guess.
In your kind of determination to become self-confident and get away from him, when you were with him, did he make you feel like that you were nothing without him and you couldn't succeed without him?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just have a moment? Yes. I don't have any further questions of this witness.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Is it Kuykendall?
Yeah.
You referenced that, what did you call him, Benyamin?
No, I called him Z. I just call him Benyamin now.
Z, okay. And you used the word to describe him as crazy, and you talked about sort of his mental illness. Do you know about, and you referenced his mom at the hospital, telling the hospital something. What did they tell him about his mental illness?
What did who tell? Or like his mom, what did his mom tell me?
Sure. What do you know about him being diagnosed with a mental illness?
Well, when I first got together with him, he was with another woman, Jennifer. I don't remember her last name, but they had been together. They had met at an institution, a mental institution, and he was on medicine at the time for what I believe is schizoaffective bipolar disorder, is what she told me. And so they were together for 2 years while he was fully medicated, and then he was like just stable, had a job, and they were engaged to get married, like a monogamous relationship, and then he stopped taking his medicine, even though I believe it was court ordered, is what she had told me. It was like court ordered for him to be medicated, and so he stopped taking it and just became a totally different person.
Okay. So he had been diagnosed with a mental illness.
Yes, from what she said and from what his mother has said, yes.
Okay. And you referenced the fact that there were a couple of things. When you talked to Detective Cruz in December of 2020, have you had a chance to listen to that interview?
I did.
Okay. And one of the things that you told her is one of the main reasons you left is because you wanted your child to be able to go to the doctor?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you also told her that him trying to sort of recruit your sister as one of his second wives crossed a line, and
Yeah, that crossed the line for me.
that also sort of motivated you to leave. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And you told Detective Cruz that you had only ever met Chloe one time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And was that what you referenced earlier when you were talking
That
about?
Asheville trip we went on, yeah. It was like,
When was that?
I don't know. My daughter was around just over a year old when that trip happened, so that would have been 2017, like
Okay.
sometime in the summer.
All right. So the one and only time you ever met Chloe Driver was in 2017?
Yeah.
And you referenced the fact that at certain points when you left him that you wanted to commit suicide. Is that right?
Yes.
And you've never been diagnosed with any type of mental illness?
No.
Was that based on the reality that you were living in with him, that you wanted to end your life?
I just think he drives women to not even necessarily women, men too, but predominantly women. He just drives them to such a crazy point with all these crazy ideas that he puts in their head, making them question everything about reality, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but then it's like your reality is totally like broken apart, and then he starts connecting all these dots for you and like starts controlling the way you think, if that helps.
Okay. But that was based on, your experiences were based on the real things that you experienced with him?
Yeah.
Okay. Not based on any delusions in your mind, based on things
yeah,
that you
no,
actually
yeah,
experienced?
exactly, yeah.
Okay. And is it fair to say, I know you said you only met Chloe one time in 2017. It's fair to say you don't know what her mental state was in December of 2020?
I really have no idea.
Okay. And you referenced sort of, I think you said you'd go back and forth, you'd leave him, you'd come back, you'd leave him, you'd come back. During that period of time, did you ever cause any harm to your child?
No.
Okay. And you indicated that back in 2020, when Detective Cruz called you, isn't it true that you told her that you didn't have any knowledge of his treatment of Chloe at all?
I didn't, only just from what I've heard from other people,
Okay.
Like Brett Tabar, I think at that point that's the only person.
Okay, you can't tell me what anybody else said, but from your own, every witness has to testify about their own personal knowledge,
Yeah.
what they saw with their own eyes, heard with their own ears.
Gotcha.
From your personal knowledge,
Mhm.
you told Detective Cruz that you didn't have any information about his treatment of Chloe Driver, right?
No, I had never seen or heard anything.
Okay. And you said a moment ago that she had reached out to you, but that You didn't feel like you could get through to her? Is that the
Yeah, I
language you
tried to
used?
explain like my situation, like my relationship with him and the abusiveness and psychological torment. And I just don't think, you know, at that point she could like realize that was what was even, or maybe it wasn't happening at that point to her, I don't know. But she did reach out to me a couple of times, so maybe that's when that started for her and him, between them.
Okay. But your perspective at that point was that she was still choosing to stay in that situation?
Yeah, in that situation. I mean, she had left. There was at least one point where she went to her parents' house and she had left. And she had called me when she was away from him, or at least I think she was. He could have been next to her, and he could have been telling her what to say, you know, just to get things out of me. I don't really know.
Okay. And when is the last time that you talked to Z?
I think it was when, it was like over a year ago at this point. He called me because he thought I was going up to Connecticut, and so he called me and just, you know, just to talk. And it quickly turned into just, you know, screaming.
Okay. So you don't maintain any kind of a relationship with him?
No.
Do you know where he lives?
I mean, I think his like physical address is like 425 Fall Mountain Road.
But he doesn't?
He doesn't actually really live there. He'll go back there sometimes.
All right. Fair to say that from your knowledge, he still has a lifestyle where he doesn't have roots?
Yeah.
Okay. You referenced that you and him lived in a tent at one point with your infant?
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
We're done. Any reason to keep the witness? Thank you. You can be excused. All right, so we are going to conclude for the day. We will ask you to return back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Leave us your notepads.